Hey everybody, Scott here for the Digital Guitar Playground. Welcome back. I am working with the TCG system today, refining the presets that I made Wednesday, and using the Radial pedals and the BluGuitar Amp 1. I've changed the setting on the Amp 1 from the classic, which is to me the best sounding of the overdrives, down to the vintage, which is just, and then rolling the drive down to like 3 1/4. So when it's on the clean setting, it's basically kind of clean with a little bit of hair on it, a little bit, tiny bit of grit. And then number 2 is the boost enabled on the Amp 1. Then number 3 is the first of the overdrives, 4 is the second, and 5 is the Radial Hot British. So I think I've swapped 3 and 4. So now 3 is the Texas Pro, 4 is the Regency. And I've just dialed the drive all the way off on the Texas Pro, and it sounds much better for a lower gain kind of setting, because it wasn't really cutting it for mid gain. And I don't know if I'm gonna keep any of them for mid gain, because I'm kind of not really I'm kind of, iffy on whether I need one. So we'll see, shall we? Okay, here at the G System, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a storm raging outside my window. I'm in Austin, Texas still for a few more months. We are moving back to Phoenix in December, so good times. What's up with this particular preset as far as the items that change in between? Mainly, it's the EQ and the compression. These effects, like the modulation, which is classic chorus, and a tiny bit of it, pitch shifting, using the pitch shifter, because you can get the -9 and the +9 at the same time, plus a tiny little bit of a delay, a tiny 5% as well. And then the reverb is that room reverb that I was playing with the other day. Same exact stuff that I had the other day, and not a lot of that. So the other effects that are happening that change would be the compressor. I'm using the percussive compressor, and these settings basically stay the same, but the gain will change. And that's because I want to have differing volumes. So on my clean preset right here, it's the lowest in volume, and I can't really adjust that individually from the Amp 1, so I'm adjusting it from here by giving this a little bit more gain. And then the other things that change, the EQ. That changes a tiny little bit on some of the presets. On this one, I'm pulling down some 1K and some top end. Now when we go over to the clean-ish, the boost comes on for the, for the Amp 1, and I'm using MIDI to turn that on. There's a MIDI CC command that does that, and it is, actually I can tell you what that is by going to switches instead of the MIDI. We'll see the first one is MIDI CC 60. That is the MIDI command on the Amp 1 to turn the boost on. MIDI command 50 turns the reverb on. So those are the only two things that I can do with MIDI on this thing to make on-the-fly changes. Because I'm going to leave the Amp 1 in the vintage amp mode, where the gain is right now, and then just stack gains on top of that, because I like the sound of it. So now back with the cleanish, the changes here. The compressor is slightly different, and so is the EQ. A little bit different. That's pretty much it. The modulation, pitch, and reverb are exactly the same, so there's no change there. With mild crunch, we are doing what with the EQ? Not pulling any mids down because the pedal didn't really require it. And the, the compressor on this one changes a little bit. We're trying to reduce volume, so bringing the gain down, or up, as it were, in the negative sense. Another thing that I should mention I mean, you don't have to. I feel like it, is the gate changes a little bit as we go along. As the pedals get higher and higher gain, I'm turning up the dampening and the speed. So here's our medium. This one, I've actually wanted to increase the drive on this one because I swapped the pedals, so I'm using the Regency, which is a lower gain pedal, and I'm getting a little bit of drive from the compressor to compensate. So there's lots of options when you use the G system to change the gain structure of what you're playing. And then EQ on this one, we're not pulling down any 1K. We are pulling down some really high end. And the final one, the heavy, with the compression. We're doing a little bit of that, and then with the you'll notice with the gate, dampening more and a quicker speed. It just makes it happen faster because it's a much hotter pedal. And then on the EQ, we're pulling down some 1K a bunch, quite a bit. I like to pull down some 1K in a heavy sound, but it's tightly notched. The Q is very tight as it gets. And then some top end, and then some even higher top end. That's pretty much that. Would you like to hear them? There you go, everybody. Working with the G system again for the first time in 5 years. Good times. I had a request. Turn off the pitch shifting. I brought it way down. You probably can't even notice it. It's just there to give it a tiny little bit of width on the tone. I think I've got the mix down to 5% on each one of these, the pitch shifter and the classic chorus. So it's just there in a tiny bit. So that's as far as I'm willing to go with that. So I will be back Monday. Who knows with what? Probably with more of this. But I think I'm going to break out the Yamaha silent guitar, the SLG 200S, and make some presets on the G system for it, because I really love that guitar, and I just restrung it with some flat wound 11 to 50 strings, or 11 to 48 DR strings, and I'm trying to get some kind of a jazzy kind of tone with it. So come on back for that. I will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend, and until then, rock on.